I got a comment. It was on the video where I was talking about how gender norms and whatnot are also creating gender dysphoria to some degree in cis people. That's why a lot of practices that like trans people do is basically because they were invented for cis people who are struggling with the same issues. And the only difference is that we, in a lot of cases, get like cross-sex gender affirming care. And then suddenly, because we are breaking away from the norm, breaking away from gender norms, gender roles, gender expectations, and whatnot, a lot of people see us as a threat. Because if men and women are equal, a man can be a woman and there's no inherent biological advantage and whatnot, they can't use gender-based oppression. And this like patriarchal thing inherently comes from Christianity. When the Roman Empire got Christian, they did a really good job at rewriting history, pushing women out of positions where they were leaders, teachers. The teacher of Socrates was a woman. And you don't know about that because Christianity also comes from a cult. The Christian God has a wife. And then some dude came in a position of power and he controlled the holy sites. And then he kind of like rewrote the Bible and whatnot and pushed the idea that like, oh, women came from like the ribs of a man, men are closer to God and all these things. And now trans people are like, hey, you know, we exist. We're breaking away from these boxes that people put us in based on our assigned gender at birth, based on our perceived phenotypical sex characteristics. That's why the upper class is like, oh, we're losing control. I don't think it's just Christianity, a lot of authoritarian rules and religions, but Christianity is likely worse. That is like what was being used, you know, like they used religion in order to push their rhetoric. Christianity was written by men for men, to put men in positions of power, to push this idea that like men are these providers and they have to be strong, women have to be subservient and whatnot. And it's like pushing this idea that male and female are basically equal to dominance and subservience. Fun fact, if you literally translate incubus and succubus, you get the demon that tops and the demon who bottoms. I'm going to make you guess who is supposed to be the bottom when it comes to like sexual demons. Shut up! Obviously, incubi are bottoms. True. Men are supposed to be bottoms. Yeah. We've also guessed. No, shut up. You said. God damn it. The literal translation, like of the prefix, means like bottom and top. And it's the same with like why is like the question like where does it come from? Is if someone is the top or the bottom when it comes to like gay couples. Who's the woman in the relationship? Who's the bottom in the relationship? And it's like, it's just misogyny and like patriarchal stuff. Same with like inclusive language, you know, when you have like doctor and female doctor because, you know, oh, women aren't supposed to be doctors, they're supposed to be nurses. Our existence threatens the fabric of their reality, definitely. Letting trans people exist, letting gender non-conforming people exist means that they can't use gender to control people. With the beauty industry and whatnot, like they push these like flaws, like things that are just natural about a woman's bodies are perceived as flaws, like body hair and whatnot, in order to sell like beauty stuff, you know? If women are hyper fixated on like their bodies and trying to like fix flaws that are not actually flaws, then they can control women. The comment is, the word gender has always confused me. The literal definition of gender is societal construct, expectation. The root word trans means to traverse, cross, or change. So by literal definition, every other person would technically be gender fluid and or transgender. But if it is such a common thing, then why do so many people have an issue with it? Because control. People are losing control. And it's also like pushing the idea that like women who are not necessarily feminine, people still lock them in like a category of woman. Basically by breaking free from like this binary perception of gender, you actually realize that like gender is a spectrum and you can also be like off the spectrum, you know, being agender and whatnot is like off the spectrum. But like if it's more like a bell curve, then most people would probably be more in the center, which means a lot of people would actually be more like non-binary. You know, a lot of women were like masculine, but they still identify with the label woman, not necessarily with like non-binary. And I think a lot of it comes from the fact that it is easier because people already freak out when you put, I don't know, your pronouns in your bio and they're like she, they. People are already freaking out. They want this black and white thinking so badly. I'm non-binary, but I want to be more trans-mass, so I can be more like a femboy. But I'd say I'm non-binary still. Fair. What you identify with is like extremely personal. Don't let other people put a label on you. Don't let other people define who you are. That is kind of what like the trans community is like trying to do. Is like just breaking away from these labels. Society is so brainwashed by the upper class that they literally want to shove you into this box, and anytime you like break free from it, they are reducing your identity to, I don't know, your genitals or something, your gametes, your chromosomes. And then and it's like, well, it's not actually like that straightforward, but you can't even have like a debate because they're not going into it with like good faith. You know, they're already like going in there in order to invalidate you, in order to define you. You don't fit into their worldview. They are going to force you into their worldview. You know, you see with like a lot of TERFs, they hate the patriarchy. They're struggling with the patriarchy. They are being unfairly treated because of men. And then people push the idea that like trans women are actually like the threat. And a lot of TERFs are basically being consumed by this. A lot of TERFs are like projecting their hatred for men onto trans women because they think that like, oh, now men are taking away their womanhood, when that is actually like not the case. Like trans women are women, and we go through a lot of things in order to, you know, feel like we are valid enough in order to call ourselves women. And you're still basically like psychologically tormenting you because you think you'll never be valid because, I don't know, you don't have periods. And it's like, you know, some cis women don't have periods, and like you shouldn't define womanhood using these things. But like these TERFs and whatnot, they are like reducing womanhood to like someone's body. And they're excluding other cis women by doing it. And they just like refuse to like see the hypocrisy of it. Transphobia literally rots your brain. A lot of it could be avoided if the person would just like stop for a second, get out of their echo chamber and just like listen. Just like talk to a trans person for a second. And like by talking, I mean like having an actual conversation where you can like figure out the root cause of like someone's bigotry, someone's hatred. Like debates and whatnot, like, I don't know, fighting in comment sections on Twitter, it doesn't do anything. Most of the times you are not even talking to a real person. You will never be able to change someone's mind, no matter how many facts or whatnot you show them, because like they like see you as the enemy, they dehumanize you, and they don't want to like listen to you. They don't want you to prove them wrong. You know, this is why it's so scary to have like platforms boost this like bigotry, willful ignorance and whatnot, and suppress people who are like just trying to live their life. Like you can't tolerate this intolerance and whatnot. And something needs to change because like a lot of people's worldview is being shaped by social media. If you have such a hostile environment where all you see is hatred, like have you ever checked like the account of a TERF, just like seeing their retweets and whatnot? Like if I was stuck in that echo chamber and that was the content that I would like see all the time, I would hate trans people too. But the thing is like most of it is just like lies. Or like, I don't know, like a drag queen did something like 6 years ago and they're still using it to like justify their hatred, and there's like no fact checking. And even if you do fact checking, it literally doesn't matter because these people are just like in too deep. It's literally just control, because you see what is happening while, I don't know, Trump is like writing his executive orders after executive order with like, oh, there are only two genders, male and female. Meanwhile, Elon is like having control over like the IRS, your social security number, grocery prices skyrocket, starting basically a war, like a trade war with like his allies. The American people are like suffering because of it. But like we wrote an executive order, so now paper straws are no longer legal. Oh, we got rid of the trans community by removing them from the the website of Stonewall. Oh, we got rid of the woke mind virus by getting rid of pronouns from emails. All these things is just like a massive distraction. Elon is literally just like a dude. He's just a dude who basically controls the entire government. And the only people, like the judges and whatnot, who are doing their jobs by upholding the Constitution, like he is painting them as the villains. They are the reason why things are still bad. And like they are saving the corruption and they are like activist judges and whatnot. It's just like, it's just propaganda. That's just what they do. That's what the right always does. It is phrasing. It is the misinformation. It's like these blatant lies about like, oh, these men are just going into the women's sports and stealing their achievements. Most cis women beat trans women. And it's also not that easy to get into women's sports. But like, it doesn't matter. Like the facts don't matter. It's literally just about feelings, about like spreading emotions. And like why they're doing it is because control. Because the peasants let the ruling class decide what their worldview should be like. It's also this idea that like, oh, I don't understand this. I've never been in contact with like a trans person. I see all these things about like how trans people are like doing these evil things. Like I'm not going to give them the benefit of the doubt because why would I? It's like arrogance and like finding a reason to hate something. And you see how much money they spend on like this right-wing propaganda, on this anti-trans propaganda and whatnot. Best way to oppress people is to put them in boxes. Gender, like attraction, isn't something you can actually put in boxes. You can work with the labels you have, but they will never truly describe you 100%. That conflicts with oppressive structures though. So people will insist that gender is rigid. That's why people just like refuse to understand that like there's a difference between gender and your biological sex. A lot of people refuse to believe that gender identity is even a thing, despite them literally having a gender identity. You can tell them, hey, you know, like gender identity refers to how you basically perceive your own like gender of yourself. And like you can't necessarily define gender without sex. For example, oh, what is a woman? Like a woman is a person, an adult human who identifies with the gender that is typically associated with the female sex. And people are just like refusing to believe it because like the definition is like, oh, you know, a woman is, I don't know, an adult human female, to make it like simpler, which is like a half truth. That's why a lot of people are like, oh, look, biological sex and gender is the same thing because like these definitions are the same. And it's just like people refusing to like learn new information. Like language is progressive, like our understanding of the world is progressive. You know, it's the same with like, oh yeah, misogyny is like a type of sexism and it's like hatred for women and girls. But like it goes deeper than that. Homophobia is also misogyny. Transphobia is also misogyny. It's like a hatred for not like women in of itself, but like for femininity. Viewing femininity as something lesser. A gay man who is more in touch with their feminine side and whatnot is like lesser of a man than someone else. Masculinity, femininity is the same type of like idea of like superior, inferior, you know?